So, with lockdown continuing around most of the world, Crave's not able to cover a whole lot in the way of live entertainment, and so we're reading a lot of books lately. And so this morning we're talking to Scottish author John Niven about his latest novel. Now, John, you got to tell me, how are we pronouncing the name of this book?
Well, it varies depending on the media outlet that you're on.
Well, we're grown-ups.
Okay, well then the fuck it list should be acceptable.
Aye, fair enough then.
On TV and radio during the promotion, it's often been the effort list, the rhymes with bucket list, with various euphemisms.
Yes. So tell us about the fuck it list. What exactly are we fucking here?
Well, the title's very obviously a sort of play on the concept of a bucket list.
Right.
And the central character, Frank Brill, is told he has terminal cancer. He's 60. And rather than doing the bucket list thing of going and swimming with dolphins or climbing the Himalayas or that kind of thing, Frank has a fucket list of people he's going to kill. Right. Some of which are personal reasons and some of which are political, we discover the reasons as we go through the book, and the political sort of becomes the personal at various points, as we learn what's impacted in his life. It's set against the backdrop of America in 2026, so it's the near future. It's 6 years from now, and the assumption is that Trump has won 2 terms in office, and that we're now halfway through Ivanka's first term in office. So it's kind of America after a decade of Trumpism is the backdrop to the book. It kind of the notion of the actual book. I've got a friend of mine back in Ayrshire in Scotland, Alan Crothers, who's one of these guys. He's very funny. He thinks he's completely sane and normal while actually being insanely eccentric. And we're in the pub. We're in the pub one night about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was Alan who said we just heard about a friend of ours who'd got cancer diagnosis, and Alan said, "You know what you do if that happens to you, John?" And we're going, swim with the dolphins, go and play, that's and he went, no, you've got a list of 5 or 6 cunts that have really fucked you over in your life, and you turn up at the door and ring, ding, ding, ring the bell. You get a shotgun, right? And you open the door and you give them a second. They fucking know. They know why you're there. And then, you blow them. We're all just looking at him going, you'd go on a killing spree. And he's like, would you not do that? So I just thought this was hilarious that would be his response to getting cancer. But as I say, this was 7 or 8 years ago, and sometimes you just file these things away. And Nabokov said that writing a novel begins with a tiny throb that you think, here's an idea I could write a novel about. Yeah. And then, in my experience, that throb becomes a recurring thought that finally becomes the only possible thought. You think, this is a book. And one idea is rarely enough. You normally 2 or 3 ideas that kind of come together. And I'd also, just in the last 3 years or so, been increasingly looking at writing a book set in a near future imagining of Trump's America. So those 2 ideas, the guy getting cancer and going on the road on a killing spree and setting it in 2026, that became the sort of essence of the book.
Fair enough. Now, I know your animosity toward the Trump family as a whole is fairly well documented on your Twitter feed, which I suspect possibly has something to do with the ownership of Turnberry and his desecration of the good game of golf.
Yeah, that wasn't a great day for me,
I can imagine.
I love that course, and of course I can't go back there.
No, you can't, can you?
And also Doonbeg in Ireland. We have a holiday home in County Clare.
Oh dear.
And it's just like it's 15, 20 minutes from what's now Trump Doonbeg. And again, that was a beautiful golf course that I love playing, and I can't go there either. So he's happened to buy 2 courses, both within sort of 15, 20 minutes of where I have homes. It's very depressing.
So it's almost personal, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was personal for a while, and that Trump blocked me on Twitter 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, before he was president, he blocked me. I was living in Los Angeles for a while in 2012. For about 6 months. When Obama won his, I kind of started noticing on Twitter that Trump was obsessed with Obama.
Yes.
He was constantly tweeting about Obama, and I kind of got into enjoying it. You know, he's clearly this mental dwarf trying to take on Obama, and I kind of enjoyed the comedy of it. And then it was the night Obama won his second term. And Trump tweeted, it was clearly Trump was in a foul mood about this. I never thought for a minute it was going to happen. He was convinced Obama was going to lose. Yeah. And Trump tweeted, back to the drawing board. And I remember I tweeted him saying, "You sound like a really shit Scooby-Doo villain."
Oh, dear.
And I think that was the breaking point. You're blocked by Donald Trump. So I kind of felt like
an achievement.
Well, I kind of felt like I'd skin in the game before most of us did, you know?
Yeah.
And off the back of this, I kind of watched his political rise from very early on. And as I say, I spent a lot of time in LA and I have a lot of friends here who are Democrats, obviously, and working in the entertainment industry. And I said to them very early days, do you think he's going to run for the nomination? And they said, don't be crazy now. He's just trying to enhance his brand, what have you. And then as things developed, sure enough, he did run. And I said to them, do you think he could win? And they went, don't be stupid. There's just here's the way it works, and this can happen, and that can happen. There's no way. It's not possible. It's the next thing he wins the nomination. So at that point, the question was, do you think he'll win the election? No. There's no chance in hell he's going to flame out. At that point, I thought, you know what? Everybody's been wrong about every step of this so far. So at that point, I went and we put quite a lot of money on bets. I put quite a bit of money that Trump would win the election in 2006.
Do you by any chance happen to remember the odds you got?
Yeah, because we had to put nobody would take a bet of much more than 150 quid. So we had to put 4 different bets on, and the odds varied from 10 to 1 to I think 12 or 13 to 1.
Oh, well played.
Yeah, so we won a fair chunk. In fact, I was actually in LA on the night of the election. I watched the Trump's election victory in LA. It started at Soho House and it was all looking good there, early doors. And then we went back to somebody's house for a party. And then just gradually, as the evening progressed and the reality started to dawn, turned into a week, as it did for many people. And I think I drank an entire bottle of scotch that night and was in a bit of a state. The money was comforting, but not that comforting. But funnily enough, actually, because I was kind of convinced he was going to win, but praying that it wouldn't. And people who are sports nuts do this, don't they? They place bets against their own team, in contests. But I rang Charlotte, my partner, back in London the day before and said, "Let's go and see if you can get another 100 quid on somewhere because I've got a feeling this is going to happen." And she's in the betting shop putting it on, and the girl says to her, "This is in London, the girl in the betting shop says." Oh, Trump, did you like him? And she went, no, not really. And she went, oh, yeah, I do. I thought, yeah, he speaks his mind, doesn't he? And at that point, oh my God, if some idiot in a betting shop in London thinks that, what are they thinking in the heartland,
Oh, yeah.
And so sure enough, it came to pass. And what we did actually was we took a few hundred quid of the winnings and rolled it the same day we picked the winnings up after the election. Yeah. We rolled it onto an impeachment bet.
Oh dear.
And the odds at that point for impeachment, I don't know, not outlandish, but again 10 to 1 sort of territory.
Yeah.
And after being in office 18 months, they were down to evens, And sure enough, we won the impeachment bet in January too. We had to do a bit of arguing with the bookies, but they finally all paid out. But friends were saying to me, how did you know? How did you get that both right? And I said, well, the election was a bit of a roll of the dice, but the impeachment bet was a lock. You could take that.
It was only a matter of time, really, wasn't it?
The day he won, I put that bet on. It was a lock. Yeah. Because, criminals going to crime. It's just no way he's a crime machine.
It was more a question of when and how, really, than
rather than if,
the weather. So actually trying to tie this back to the book that we're supposed to be discussing here, right? So without getting into too much spoilers, obviously we're talking about a second term. So you see that coming, don't you?
I kind of do at the moment, I'm afraid, because for one overriding reason, I think he's going to cheat. They're going to ballot harvest. They're going to gerrymander. They're going to have a lot of Russian help again on social media. Facebook, Zuckerberg's firmly planted his flag behind Trump. it's going to be very difficult, I think, for the Democrats to win. I can see a couple of scenarios where if it's very close, and let's face it, US elections are usually close.
True.
If it's very close, he'll refuse to accept the result.
Yes.
If for some reason there is this huge, red wave and the blue wave rather than the Democrats have a landslide, I think he'll refuse to accept the result. He'll insist it must be fraudulent because it's such a huge, I can't see a scenario he accepts it, and a lot of people who have known him through his life will say there's no way he peacefully surrenders power. And when I was researching the novel, when I was sort of imagining future scenarios, I thought a very plausible one, and this might yet play out, will be that he wins in November, and he will do 2 or 3 years of his second term, and at that point he'll fire Mike Pence and install Ivanka as vice president, which is perfectly within his rights to do. And at that point, by the time Ivanka comes to fight the 2024 election, she'd have had 18 months or 2 years, whatever experience as a VP. And or he could, in fact, the darker route is appoint her as vice president, and then he resigns the office due to ill health. So she gets to become acting president for a year or so before she has to fight an election. So that was a kind of scenario that I worked with in mind when I was writing the book. That's kind of what happens in the novel. And I think at that point, I don't know if you've read Sarah Kensdor's book, Hiding in Plain Sight. She's an American academic who spent her professional life studying autocracies in the former Soviet Union. And she makes the point that once autocrats get in, it's incredibly difficult to get them out.
Right.
Because, and you see this with the media and the Democrat Party, they're all still playing with the old rules. They're all still playing in the old world where, they're bringing a knife to a nuke fight. You're fighting people who will literally, the president's son, Don Jr., who I think is arguably the most loathsome of all the Trumps, literally accused Joe Biden to be the paedophile.
Yes.
On Twitter, and doesn't seem to really have been any comeback for that. Seems to be, that's all right, fair enough.
Or indeed an appreciation of the irony of it.
Well, exactly. So we're in crazy territory. What would admit, I've answered this question a couple of times in interviews. That it's quite an extreme backdrop to the novel, the bucket list. But two things. One, I think I'm constantly thinking that I didn't go far enough because current events keep outstripping what I'd imagined. Yeah. And two, I think if you look at the kind world would be iconoclastic, the more real world would be vicious, nasty politicians. Like if you look at the UK after a decade of Thatcherism, it was a very different place from what it was before. Some might argue some things got better. But I think for the vast majority of people, things got worse. So I think America, after 10 or 12 years of Trumpism, will be unrecognisable.
Yeah, I mean, we could go through this all day. I mean, having lived there myself, I've seen things starting to emerge.
Where did you live, Steve?
Oh, we were in Florida.
All right.
And you can only imagine what it's like down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there isn't even the veneer of civilization down there, I'm afraid.
No. MAGA country, isn't it? These were all kind of things I wanted to explore a bit in the novel.
Fair enough. Now, I mean, obviously, you got it set in the backdrop of this apocalyptic Trump wasteland, but you do have Frank killing off a number of people. Now, I guess we'll avoid spoilers by not going into the details of exactly who he kills. You've set up the idea that he does. To what extent is that like a personal wish list?
Well, I try to think how to discuss this without spoilers.
We'll be very, very careful.
It's not personal for me. I'm not very. I can be politically very angry, but I'm not really a vengeful person. Frank's carefully nurtured his grudges, whereas I tend to just. I don't have a long enough memory.
Oh, okay.
I'll forget I'm mad at somebody. But how to best put this? Well, you find out that the kind of a couple of the things that have happened after a decade of Trumpism is that the NRA, the gun lobby, is just out of control to the point where there's like mandatory open carry in a lot of states. You have to have you get arrested if you don't have a gun.
I know, that was a glorious detail.
And it's led to policies like Rambo teachers, where schools employ teachers who get extra bonuses if they carry a gun in their arm, which leads to sort of 5-way shootout massacres. And it's just the school shootings have got exponentially through the roof. And they've also, another thing they've done is abortion's been illegal for a few years now, and women are forced to resort to sort of backstreet abortions and crossing state lines. And the abortion thing and the gun lobby thing have both wound up impacting on Frank's family. So I guess when I initially conceived the novel, it was meant to be a lot maybe more broadly comedic, but sometimes when you start working on something, the tone of the book gets set by certain fixed things. So once I knew Frank was going to kill a bunch of people, I still wanted the reader had to have sympathy for Frank.
Of
because
course.
It couldn't just be like my friend Alan said, somebody stole his parking space in 1984, so he's going to blow them away. It had to be something pretty big, and that you would naturally be sympathetic towards. So that meant inventing this quite tragic backstory for Frank. And that ends up kind of dictating that the book wasn't going to be quite an outright laugh fest,
Right, yeah.
That happens sometimes.
So it's probably closer to Cold Hands than Sunshine Cruise Company then, really, isn't it, to be fair?
Cold Hands is an excellent reference point, because that was a very similar process. When I had the idea for that book, as soon as I knew it was going to be about somebody who had killed a young boy when they were a kid, that immediately sort of sets the tone. You can't really come full comedy until
but also another North American book. So are we sort of like separating our continents here? The humour happens in Europe and the bad things happen over there.
I hadn't thought of that. Maybe. Well, to be fair though, the next novel is hopefully I think it is a lot funnier, and it's also set in America. I've just finished it actually, so it'll hopefully be published end of next year, sort of autumn 2021, and it's again it does go into Trump territory, but hopefully the last Kill 'Em All, the sequel to Kill Your Friends, which came out in 2018, was very much the backdrop to that novel. It was all set in 2017, and the backdrop was Trump's inauguration, and then first 6 months in office. And so now, obviously, with the Fuck It list, the book after Kill 'Em All, it's also been, it's a Trump backdrop book. And then the next one is called Convenience, and it's set in a sort of convenience station gas station in the middle of nowhere in a sort of remote part of California. And it all happens over the course of one night on election night 2016. And it's a kind of comedy horror novel. The idea was to kind of do a blend of Kevin Smith's Clerks and John Carpenter's The Thing.
Right.
So it's kind of all set in this one quite intense location over the course of one night.
Wow. So we're certainly genre hopping here, because the Sunshine Cruise Company, I mean, I was trying to think how to describe it to someone the other day. The best I could come up with was Carry On Money Heist was about the best I could come up with.
That's as fair as anything else, I think. I think if I wrote in one straight genre, I'd maybe be a bit more successful than I am, because people kind of like to know what they get. But you kind of can't help the way you're wired up, and the stories that occur to you are the stories that occur to you. I don't know any other way to do it. So I fall in a sort of quite difficult position in that I'm not a literary novelist,
Right.
And at the same time, I'm not a sort of populist genre novelist. I sort of fall between those two worlds, But I've been lucky enough in that I've had enough of a readership. Now I've got enough readership that I'm 10 books in, and as they say in the record industry, a successful album is the one that lets you make your next album.
Right.
We're gonna, I'm not going to give J.K. Rowling any sleepless nights, but we do all right, and I feel lucky in that I get to do pretty much exactly what I want,
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, you don't want people saying, "Oh, look, John's written his book again."
No, you don't want that, no. But I did think at one point, actually, after Cold Hands, that you mention it, I had a bit of an idea for another thriller, and I had this fanciful plan that I was going to do a thriller series, and I'd do 1 year a sort of John Niven novel, and then next year I'd do a thriller novel, and so on. But I just didn't quite have enough good thriller ideas to keep that going, you know?
But then you'd also have to do what J.K. Rowling's done and adopt a pseudonym, wouldn't you? So what would you be?
I thought about that too. We went round the houses on that, and I just couldn't come up with anything good. I went for dinner with Cat Moran, and I was saying to her, I've got to try and think of a pen name for these thrillers. And at the end of the night, we were both absolutely pissed. And I opened my notepad the next day, and we must have written 20. Have I got it in here? We'd written about 20 ideas, and they were all absolutely, they're all absolutely ludicrous.
Excellent.
I don't think it's this notebook, unfortunately. It's like when bands make albums in the studio. There's always a sort of a lot of bands who have a whiteboard up for album title.
Right. Yeah.
And the joke half is always absolutely packed, and the serious names half is empty.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a bit like that.
So listen, since you mentioned music, I was going to ask you, because obviously that's kind of your background, isn't it? You were in the music scene before you started writing. What are you listening to at the moment? Because we know you're not getting out much.
What am I listening to at the moment? This moment, because I'm outlining a memoir that might be the next book I write.
Okay, so so you're telling me that Kill Your Friends wasn't a memoir?
Sadly not. A memoir that, which it kind of covers, but it's a story of me and my brother who killed himself 10 years ago now.
Right, sorry.
No, that's fine. Well, I say it's fine. It was very, very sad, but it's kind of about that question that I think haunts a lot of parents, that you bring two kids up and you think pretty much the same way, and they go very different paths in life. You know, my brother kind of became a minor league drug dealer, and then struggled with depression and became long-term unemployed, and it's a very sad story. But I am getting round to answer your question about music.
Yeah.
So I've been outlining this. It's not going to be a misery memoir, because there was a lot of fun stuff along the way too, and it's kind of about both our lives.
Right.
But as part of doing that, I start in the 70s when we're small, and then obviously go right the way up till 2010 when he committed suicide. And so I've been listening to a lot of Spotify playlists from the specific years. So also the other side effect of lockdown is I have my study in the house, and normally during the day it's very quiet. The kids at school, or Charlotte goes and does her thing, but now of course we're all in the house all the time, so it can get quite noisy out in the sort of kitchen, the hall. You can just hear it a bit, but that way when you're trying to work in the house. So I don't normally write listening to music at all. A lot of writers do. Ian Rankin does, Stephen King does. I've never been I found it hard to listen to music while I write, because I just get distracted. But just in the past month or so, I've had to start doing it, because it just blocks out the ambient noise of the house. So that's what I've been listening to. I've been listening to sort of UK chart hits from 1973 to 1980. It's been my sort of listening for the past. Yeah, it's it's been interesting. A lot of stuff you hear in those that, God, I didn't remember that song. And sometimes a song will jog a very specific memory that sort of, when you're writing something like memoir, it can be very useful. But in terms of new bands, what am I listening to? God. The last new band before all this happened that we really kind of get into, went to see live with the Lemon Twigs. I thought were really exciting.
Lemon Twigs?
American band. Very young.
Okay.
This has come back 2 years now. The debut album came out maybe even 3. They were only 17 and 19 at the time, so they're very young. But I like that record. Who else?
Would you have signed them?
Yes, I definitely would have. Which is probably an absolute guarantee that they're never going to make it.
So they wouldn't. They're not going to be the next Coldplay then, obviously.
I fear not. No.
Does that come back to haunt you an awful lot? Do people tend to bring that up?
I I don't think I've ever done a reading in Germany or an interview where the conversation hasn't begun with reference to Coldplay and Muse.
Oh dear. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you.
No, it's all right. Does it haunt me? It haunts me sometimes when I think of the money. I probably missed out on. But other than that, no.
Fair enough. So I'm guessing with the lockdown going, the golf game must be suffering a bit as well, yeah.
Well, they've just lifted it in England, the ban on golf courses this week.
Right.
So I'm playing on Friday, but that will be the first time since actually last November.
Oh dear Lord.
Well, the winter is so severe. Yeah, I hate playing in the rain and the cold.
Yeah.
So normally we get to. Oh, sorry, I tell a lie. I played in the LA in January.
Right.
That was the last time. So yeah, it'll be a good 5 months when I get back. So it's quite a long layoff. I find sometimes. Are you a golfer?
I'm not. I come from a golfing family, but I'm not personally.
I find sometimes when you go back after a long layoff, you can actually play very well at first. Because you're quite uninhibited. You're not overthinking things,
Right, yeah.
Normally my games, the golf season for me usually starts in April, and I'm normally playing pretty well by May or June, and then it starts to go downhill from there until October, and we stop again.
Fair enough. So where are you actually now? Because you mentioned earlier something about being back in Ayrshire. So clearly you're not at home right now.
Yeah, we're in Buckinghamshire now, so we're just outside of London.
Very nice.
Just west of London. But I still have a home in Scotland. My mum lives there, but we still have a house in Ayrshire, so I visit fairly regularly. I still got a lot of friends in Glasgow, so I miss getting up there. I do. Normally it'd be quite rare that I wouldn't get to Scotland at least once every 6 or 8 weeks.
Oh, fair enough then.
My mum's on her own, so she's missing the grandkids and stuff. So it's difficult on that level. That said, I think Scotland are doing the right thing in keeping their lockdown total. Obviously, under Boris's ludicrous, flaky leadership, we're kind of neither here nor there. So it's infuriating.
So there's an interesting bit of double think going on there. So you're criticising the end of the lockdown, and yet you're taking advantage of it by going and playing 18.
Well, I never thought that. I believe that they only banned golf because Michael fucking Gove was asked in a TV interview on the spot, will we close golf courses? And he went, yeah. Right. Literally, if you thought about it, there's no need to. Golf, you can comfortably maintain.
It's the most socially distant sport there is.
Especially if you're bad and you spray your ball all over the course. But also, I mean, if as long as you don't putt out, so you don't have to put your hand in the hole, you don't touch the flagstick, you just play a gimme game, so you get it within 2 feet and it's fine, pick it up. Then you don't need to touch anything, You don't. I wouldn't ride in a cart. I wouldn't hire a cart that people had been in and out of. But if you go and you walk, even maybe playing 4 balls would be difficult. But if you play a 2 ball, it's easy to, So I never thought that was a sound thing to shut the courses anyway. So that's my get out there.
That's how you justify it to yourself.
Correct.
Fair enough. So we've already established that you're less than enamoured of the American leadership during the lockdown. Then what are we making of the British leadership? Let's just do that quickly.
Just as bad. I think Nicola Sturgeon's a very good leader and has been very clear in this from the off.
Yeah.
Whereas Johnson, like Trump, I mean, they would take a doubling of the death rate just to try and save the economy. But that's, again, it's a fallacy in itself. We have plenty of money. We can help people through this. Our costs in this so far are somewhere north of 100 billion. The bank's got 500. We got 5 times that back in 2008 without the bat of an eyelid. So we can get through this for another 6 months if we need to. It's just a question of, do you want to do it? And also, don't forget, a lot of the problems we're having and the reason it's getting so expensive is we didn't do it quickly enough.
Well, that's true.
Lockdown weeks. We were living a kind of lockdown lifestyle 2 weeks before it was actually called.
Yeah.
And I know that's easy for me to say. We have quite a big house. We've got a big garden, and we like cooking, and also purely from a selfish perspective, my daily routine didn't change that much. You know, I get up in the morning, I come in my study, I potter about, and miss kind of going to restaurants or going for coffee or what have you. But it wasn't really a huge shock to our system the way we live now.
So when you're told to work from home, you're going, okay.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm used to that. But I think for some people who are used to where you maybe kids in school or in childcare and two parents out working, I mean, suddenly you're all in the house together, 24/7. I think some people are finding that very difficult.
No, fair enough. Now, listen, since you've mentioned Nicola Sturgeon, it would be remiss of me. I'm sure you get this a lot of the time, but given you are, at the very least, semi-professionally Scottish, where are we standing at the moment on the issue of independence?
Well, I've always been pro-Scottish independence and also very pro-EU. So my ideal position was an independent Scotland as part of the EU. I was
right,
and of course Brexiteers will always come at you and say, "Well, how can you be for Scottish independence, but you don't want us to? You still want to be part of the EU?" And I'm a federalist. I'm internationalist, and my view with Scotland was ever since I've been born, Scotland has never ever voted for a Tory government, and yet it's got one every single time. So to me, Scottish people have a completely different outlook on life, on politics, and have the right to self-determination. And as one of the whole Brexit movement was just this thundering, horrific wave of the worst kind of nationalism and patriotism. Which I want no part of. Whereas I think the EU, it's just such a dismal day. We voted to leave the EU, so I campaigned quite hard for Scottish independence. And looking back now, that was the first blow. Really, I remember losing the independence vote, being the first blow that was then very quickly followed by Brexit and then Trump. And then
they were back to back, really, weren't they? Pretty much.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. It was like 4 hammer blows in a row, that just gave you this awful sense that the world was creeping a bit to creeping further and further to the right. Yeah. So, do
you see yourself moving back to Scotland?
I could, but I don't think it'll be for a few years. Just for the kids,
Right.
I think once the kids have all flown, I could. But that said, we're up there a lot anyway,
Right, yeah, fair enough.
So it's not that I don't get to see it, but I did sort of say that, if we end up doing this huge act of national self-harm, which is a no-deal Brexit, off the back of having come through coronavirus, I think things might get so grim in England that I might be happy to. I might force the case and say, right, we're going back to Scotland. I've had enough of this.
That sounds absolutely reasonable.
Where were you from originally, Steve?
Salford.
All right. Oh, great, good. My son went to. I know Manchester isn't the same as Salford, but my son my son went to university in Manchester, so right.
It's close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough, but I escaped in '91.
All right.
And I do get back, and I recognise an awful lot of what you're talking about.
You left at the height of Manchester,
mate. The stories I could tell you of how I missed out on Manchester, you wouldn't believe. I'd been in the US until sort of like mid '89, and I came back, and I remember sitting in St Anne's Square in Manchester, seeing everyone with these T-shirts on, advertising a band called the Stone Roses. I'm thinking, I must find out about them. They sound awfully good. And I went home. My brother had the tape, and I had a listen, and then I thought, well, that changes everything, doesn't it? So yeah, it was a good time to be in Manchester. It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, John, we've covered an awful lot of ground this morning. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
No, my pleasure, Steve. Thank you for having me.
And just to remind us, the next book the current book is called The Fuck It List. It's out now.
It is indeed. It's out in hardback, paperback, just before the US election in October.
Fair enough. Good timing, and it's on Kindle as well, isn't it?
It is indeed. Kindle, Audible, all many platforms.
One way or another, you can track it down. And I'm going to claim this is a massive scoop for Crave. Convenience is going to be your next book, and that's going to come out next year.
I think autumn 2021.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, Steve, and good luck.
Thanks.